If you often find yourself waking between 3 o'clock and 5 a.m., this may be far more than just a case of sleeplessness. According to the profound insights of Edgar Cayce, often referred to as the sleeping prophet, these early awakenings could actually be your soul, responding to one of the most spiritually charged windows of the day. What I'm about to share from Cayce's documented readings might forever shift the way you perceive these quiet, early morning hours. Have you ever noticed how unusually alert and clear your mind feels during that time, even though your body seems tired? Cayce, who gave over 14,000 psychic readings in his lifetime, explained that between 3 and 5 a.m., the veil separating the physical world from the spiritual dimension becomes remarkably thin. Here's where it gets astonishing. In reading 25468, Cayce revealed that individuals who awaken during these hours may actually be receiving direct communication from their higher self. This isn't superstition or folklore, it's deeply studied spiritual insight that has helped thousands of people tap into their divine potential. Over the next few moments, I'll walk you through 5 powerful revelations Cayce made about early morning awakenings, including one remarkable story of a woman in Virginia Beach whose entire life was transformed once she began to understand what these wake-up calls truly meant. But before we go deeper, consider this. Have you ever experienced a sudden burst of creativity or profound insight during these quiet hours? Cayce's first revelation about the 3 to 5 a.m. window is both surprising and deeply spiritual. In reading 19682, he described how the pineal gland, what he referred to as the body's spiritual center, becomes most active during this time. This tiny gland, barely the size of a pea, acts as a receiver for what Cayce called cosmic consciousness. Interestingly, modern science has uncovered patterns in melatonin production regulated by the pineal gland that align closely with Cayce's spiritual interpretation. But this is where the message deepens. Cayce stated that those who frequently awaken during this sacred time are often being spiritually prepared for service. In one documented case from 1934, a businessman in Kentucky wrote to Cayce, deeply concerned about his consistent 4 a.m. wake-ups. He was worn out, anxious, and unsure of what was happening. Reading 8 hours, 49 minutes and 45 seconds offered an unexpected answer. These awakenings weren't a burden, they were a calling. His soul, Cayce explained, was being prepared to step into a role of healing and service to others. And there's something even more profound that Cayce uncovered about these early hours. In just a moment, I'll share the reading that stunned even his stenographer, Gladys Davis. It has to do with the Akashic records and why certain souls are chosen to access them in the quiet before dawn. The second revelation Cayce offered involves what he termed soul memory activation. During the early morning stillness, when the mind is at rest and the ego is quiet, the doorway to past lives begins to open. In reading 374, Cayce explained that the conscious mind temporarily steps aside during this window, allowing memories and spiritual insight from other lifetimes to rise gently to the surface. This isn't just spiritual theory. Cayce documented dozens of real cases where individuals received transformative insights about themselves during these hours, visions and truths that forever changed the course of their lives. In 1941, a school teacher from Virginia Beach found herself waking every morning at precisely 3:30 a.m. At first, these nightly interruptions left her weary and confused, but her search for understanding led her to Edgar Cayce. Through one of his readings, it was revealed that she was not simply waking by chance, she was beginning to recall her past life as a healer in ancient Egypt. Following Cayce's gentle guidance, she chose not to resist these early stirrings. Instead, she embraced them through quiet meditation. Within just 6 months, her intuition had deepened significantly, and she began offering support to those around her, especially in matters of health, drawing upon knowledge that could not be explained by natural learning alone. Here's where the mystery of these awakenings becomes profound. Cayce explained that between 3 and 5 a.m., the Earth's electromagnetic field shifts into a frequency that harmonizes with the human spirit. This, he said, opens a spiritual window, one through which the soul may receive information that's normally silenced by the noise of daily life. Picture it like tuning in to a hidden frequency, a sacred broadcast that only airs in the quiet before dawn. Your soul is the receiver, and during these hours, it hears most clearly from what Cayce described as the universal consciousness. One of the most startling discoveries Cayce shared came in 1936. During reading 26289, even his stenographer, Gladys Davis, was taken aback. Cayce revealed that some souls are born with a divine assignment to serve as spiritual messengers during these sacred early hours. These individuals, often unaware, wake between 3 and 5 a.m. because they are meant to channel healing energy to others, sometimes across the globe. This leads us to the third revelation, healing energy transmission. In reading 281-4, Cayce spoke of how those who awaken during these times often become unconscious vessels of divine healing, sending restoration and peace to family, friends, and even strangers in need. One powerful example from the archives of the Association for Research and Enlightenment involves a woman in North Carolina who for several months woke each night at exactly 4 a.m. Through a reading with Cayce, she learned that her teenage son serving overseas in World War II was receiving protection through her. Though unaware of it, her soul had been interceding, praying for him from a place deeper than words. 2 weeks after the reading, a letter arrived from her son. In it, he described a near-death experience during a bombing raid, and the exact timing matched one of her early morning awakenings. This wasn't a coincidence. It was what Cayce called soul-to-soul communication, an act of love that transcended time and physical space. What's even more remarkable is what Cayce taught about the stillness of the night. He said healing energy flows most effortlessly when the world is silent, when the mind is uncluttered and the spirit is still. In this silence, the transmission of what he called the Christ consciousness, a force of divine compassion and love, becomes strongest. But the fourth revelation, it may change the way you understand prayer and meditation forever. In just a moment, I'll share the exact technique Cayce recommended to those who wake during these hours and why it holds even greater power than traditional practices. Modern energy healers have, perhaps unknowingly, offered validation to Cayce's teachings. Many of them have shared that their most effective healing sessions seem to happen during the early hours of the morning, when they feel the deepest connection to what they describe as universal energy. This perfectly aligns with Cayce's explanation that cosmic consciousness becomes more accessible during these sacred hours. The fourth revelation from Edgar Cayce's readings unveils a deeply touching possibility: direct communication with loved ones who have passed away. Between 3 and 5 a.m., Cayce explained in reading 13618, the spiritual dimensions overlap with our physical reality, making contact with those who have passed much more likely. Importantly, Cayce made it clear that this is not about seances or spiritualism in the traditional sense. Instead, he spoke of this as a natural form of soul-to-soul communication, something that can take place when our conscious mind is still enough to allow these impressions to emerge. A widow from Virginia came to Cayce in 1938, seeking clarity after repeatedly waking at exactly 3:45 a.m., feeling the unmistakable presence of her departed husband. She felt frightened, unsure if what she was experiencing was real. Cayce's reading brought comfort, revealing that her husband truly was visiting during these hours, offering love, reassurance, and guidance for the financial burdens she had been facing. Rather than resist, Cayce advised her to receive these moments with openness. He encouraged her to gently ask her husband for specific help. Following his guidance, she began meditating during those awakenings and speaking to her husband's spirit with heartfelt questions. The answers she received led her to wise financial decisions, and eventually, she discovered a hidden bank account her husband had left behind, securing her financial future. Cayce also shared a simple yet powerful technique for connecting with spirit during these moments. Instead of forcing yourself back to sleep, sit quietly and ask, "What do I need to know?" Then allow your heart to listen not for words, but for feelings, impressions, and sudden understanding. Cayce said, the spiritual realm communicates through impressions, feelings, and sudden knowing rather than dramatic visions. This understanding changes how we view grief and the ongoing connection we hold with those we've lost. According to Cayce, death doesn't sever our bonds, it simply transforms how we experience that love. And these early hours are among the most sacred times to nurture that spiritual connection. But what comes next may be even more astonishing. The fifth revelation will challenge the way you understand time, dreams, and the very nature of your consciousness. Within Cayce's records lie documented cases that suggest these awakenings are moments when glimpses of the future may be revealed. The fifth and most profound revelation from Edgar Cayce's work concerns prophetic dreams and visions that occur between 3 and 5 a.m. In reading 294 to 159, Cayce explained that during these hours, the soul may access the Akashic records, a vast spiritual archive containing all past, present, and potential future events. One striking case involved a businessman in New York who, throughout the year 1928, began waking at exactly 4 a.m. with intense dreams. In these dreams, he saw scenes of financial ruin, the stock market plummeting, and lives being upended. Deeply disturbed by these images, he reached out to Cayce for understanding. Reading 137-4 confirmed what he feared these dreams were prophetic glimpses into the near future. He was being shown the warning signs of the coming financial collapse. Heeding this guidance, the man quietly moved his financial holdings into safer assets, and when the market did crash in October 1929, he was among the few who had protected their wealth. But beyond that, he was able to guide his family and friends through the storm, helping them prepare for the devastation that followed. This was far from an isolated case. Edgar Cayce's archives include dozens of documented examples where individuals received prophetic insight during those quiet, early morning awakenings. One such case involved a devoted mother from Ohio who regularly awoke at 3:30 a.m. during the Second World War. Each time, she was met with vivid dreams concerning her son's safety overseas. Every dream turned out to be accurate, allowing her to guide him away from dangerous circumstances through timely letters that always seemed to arrive just when he needed them most. What makes this so profoundly extraordinary is Cayce's explanation of time. From the perspective of the soul, time is not linear. During the pre-dawn hours, when the ego mind is hushed, consciousness can move freely, accessing both memories of the past and visions of potential futures with stunning clarity. But this raises a deeper question. Why do only certain people seem to experience these spiritual awakenings? Cayce's readings offer a revealing answer. Before we enter this life, our souls choose their path of spiritual service. Those who awaken regularly between 3 and 5 a.m. are often those who agreed on a soul level to serve as guides, healers, or protectors in this lifetime. This explains why these awakenings often become more frequent during personal hardships or global upheaval. Your soul is responding to a greater need for light, wisdom, and healing in the world. Cayce urged us not to resist these moments, but to revere them as sacred appointments with our higher calling. Supporting this view is a wealth of evidence held in the archives of the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach. Thousands of cases document how people who welcomed these early awakenings, rather than fighting them, experienced enhanced intuition, deeper spiritual connection, and a newfound clarity of life purpose. One especially powerful example centers around a nurse in California who began waking at exactly 4 a.m. each night after being assigned to a cancer ward. Initially exhausted and overwhelmed, she later discovered through a Cayce reading that her soul was unconsciously transmitting healing energy to her patients during those hours. Once she understood this deeper purpose, everything shifted. She began to meditate and pray intentionally during these awakenings, channeling love and strength toward the individuals in her care. Hospital supervisors noticed something remarkable. Patients under her care showed statistically measurable improvements in recovery and pain relief. While her colleagues couldn't explain it medically, Cayce's spiritual teachings offered the deeper truth behind the phenomenon. So what should you do if you find yourself waking between 3 and 5 a.m.? Cayce shared a simple but life-changing practice. First, resist the urge to be frustrated. View the awakening as a divine appointment. Second, spend at least 10 minutes in stillness through meditation or prayer, asking how you might be of service. Third, pay close attention to whatever impressions, emotions, or thoughts arise. These are often messages from your soul or loved ones who've passed on. Fourth, keep a notebook by your bed. Write down anything you receive. Cayce taught that spiritual guidance often arrives as symbols or subtle impressions that reveal their meaning with time. Fifth, if a particular person comes to mind and you feel drawn to pray for them, honor that prompting. It may be your spirit responding to their need for healing or support. Those who begin aligning with these sacred early hours often undergo remarkable transformation. One retired teacher in Florida, after struggling for years with interrupted sleep, decided to try Cayce's protocol. Within 3 months, she developed powerful intuitive gifts and began offering informal spiritual guidance to friends and neighbors. Her quiet morning meditations became the seed of a new calling, a second career as a spiritual counselor. What makes Edgar Cayce's teachings on these early morning awakenings so profoundly compelling is their real-world usefulness. These aren't abstract spiritual theories, they are concrete, applicable insights that can reshape how you view sleep, deepen your connection to the divine, and open your heart to greater service in the world. The healings, the prophetic dreams, and the personal transformations recorded in Cayce's files provide powerful confirmation. Consciousness operates according to laws we are only beginning to uncover. So if you find yourself waking between 3 and 5 a.m., it isn't just a sleep disturbance. It may very well be a sacred opportunity, a spiritual doorway opening just for you. Interestingly, modern sleep science has revealed that during these hours, the human body naturally enters a lighter phase of sleep, making us more attuned to subtle energies and external stimuli. What researchers describe as a sleep cycle shift, Cayce understood as a window for divine communication. When science and spiritual wisdom meet, they offer us a more complete view of these mysterious awakenings. Now, imagine this shift in perspective. What if, instead of seeing these moments as interruptions, you began to recognize them as invitations? Invitations to be part of something greater than yourself. Cayce's readings point to a deeper truth. Those who experience these awakenings are often being gently summoned to share their spiritual gifts with a world in need. And the sheer consistency of results, documented across decades, invites us to take these teachings seriously. Whether you've long been spiritually inclined or are only beginning to explore this path, the blessings of embracing these awakenings rather than resisting them are undeniable. Your soul chose to incarnate at this time, with sacred tasks to fulfill. And the very fact that you're drawn to understand these early morning stirrings may mean you're ready to step fully into that divine calling. Edgar Cayce's legacy provides the map, but it is your courage, your openness, and your willingness to embrace the unknown that will move you toward the transformation your soul came here to experience. Perhaps Cayce's most groundbreaking insight about 3 to 5 a.m. awakenings was also his simplest. These hours are not disturbances in your rest. They are divine appointments, moments chosen by the soul to awaken to purpose. So the question isn't, why am I waking up? The real question is, what will I do with this sacred time now that I understand what it truly means? Because the thousands of stories preserved in Cayce's archives remind us, spiritual awakening often begins with literal awakening at the very hours when heaven and earth meet in stillness. These quiet stirrings of early morning awareness are not burdens, they are blessings. They are not obstacles to overcome, but divine gifts to be received, honored, and embraced.